This introduction to the Accessibility Resources video is sponsored by the California Department of Education. This video will focus on the purpose and importance of accessibility resources, the accessibility categories, and the steps to select resources. Let's now walk through the 1, 2, 3, 4s of accessibility. In the past, we often talked about equity in education, providing each student with the same educational opportunities. Now we are focused on equitable education, providing each student with the tools and resources they need to be successful in school and to graduate ready for college or career. And those needs can vary greatly by individual student. Our goal is all about equity. The purpose of California assessments is to provide every student with a positive and productive assessment experience, generating results that are a fair and accurate estimate of each student's achievement. These assessments are the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, or the ELPAC, the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments for English Language Arts and Literacy, or ELA in Math, the California Science Test, or CAASPP, the California Spanish Assessment, or CSA, and the California Alternate Assessments, or CAAs. Further, the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, or CAASPP, and ELPAC are built on a framework of accessibility for all students, including English learners, ELs, students with disabilities, and ELs with disabilities. In the process of developing its comprehensive assessments to measure students' knowledge and skills as they progress toward college and career readiness, Smarter Balanced in California recognized that the validity of assessment results depends on each and every student having appropriate accessibility resources when needed, based on the constructs being measured by the assessment. We have one purpose when it comes to accessibility: access. Students with specific learning needs may require accessibility resources to fully engage and demonstrate mastery of content during instruction and on assessments. To better serve them, the CAASPP and the ELPAC provide a wide range of resources to ensure the administration of the tests meet the needs of all students, including those with disabilities. Through this collaboration, an array of universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations is available to ensure that students' accessibility needs are met. When it comes to the delivery of accessibility resources, there are two options: embedded and non-embedded. Embedded resources are digitally delivered as part of the technology platform for computer-based tests, such as text-to-speech for math and science. Non-embedded resources are provided by the LEA outside of the test delivery system, such as noise buffers and scratch paper. Keep the following in mind. Some embedded resources are available only for specific test questions or specific domains for which they are allowed. If a non-embedded resource is shown to be available for allowed items, it may be used only for the specific items for which the embedded version of the resource is made available by the test delivery system. For example, for grades 6 through 8 and 11, students can only use the non-embedded calculator as an accommodation for calculator allowed items only. Resources included in the CAASPP and ELPAC tests fall into these three basic categories based on the universal design for learning. Universal design is a concept for designing products and services in such a way that they are usable by people with the widest possible range of functional capabilities, thus reducing the need for assistive technology or accommodations. There are resources that support students to remain engaged with the assessment. For example, provide breaks, a separate setting, or even noise buffers. There are also resources that support students by varying the way the assessment is presented. For example, all or parts of the assessment might be translated for an English learner, or parts of an assessment might be read aloud to struggling readers through text-to-speech. And finally, there are resources that support students by allowing them to respond through various actions and expressions, such as through an adaptive keyboard or by using a scribe. There are 4 types of resources. These resources are listed in the California Assessment Accessibility Resources Matrix. This document lists all the accessibility resources available for CAASPP and ELPAC. The first type of resources available are the universal tools. Universal tools are available to all students based on individual choice and preference. You do not have to do anything to turn on a universal tool. They come built into the test. Examples include Zoom, Notepad, Highlighter, and Strike-Through. Next are the designated supports. They are available to all students for whom a need has been identified by an adult who is familiar with the student's instructional needs. That's right, students do not need an individualized education program, or IEP, or a Section 504 plan to receive designated supports. Examples include read aloud and text-to-speech. Again, any student with an identified need, such as an English learner or a struggling reader, can receive designated supports. The next level are accommodations. For accommodations, the student does need an active IEP or Section 504 plan, and the accommodation must be written into the IEP or Section 504 plan and designated on the statewide testing page of the IEP or Section 504 plan. Accommodations are things like American Sign Language, ASL, Braille, or word prediction. For the three types listed so far, universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations, students who use these during the test will still get a valid test score. We will tell you about unlisted resources in just a moment. I'm going to say that again because it is important. The use of identified accessibility resources, such as universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations, does not affect the student's test score, nor a school district's participation rate in any way. These resources do not change the construct of what is being measured. There is one more level of resource available that we want to talk about. They are called unlisted resources. Like accommodations, the student needs an active IEP to be able to use these, and there is a process involved in requesting them. Unlisted resources are resources that are not already identified as an allowed universal tool, designated support, or accommodation on the accessibility matrix. Unlisted resources are rare, so before you submit an unlisted resource, first check the accessibility matrix to make sure that the resource is truly unlisted. Next, to get a student access to an unlisted resource, the test site coordinator must submit a request to the California Department of Education through the Test Operations Management System, or TOMS, a minimum of 10 business days before the student's first day of testing. The CDE will review the item, and approval will be granted if the resource does not compromise the test security. In addition, the CDE will determine if the construct being tested is still valid with the use of this resource. Change of construct means a modification of the concept or skills being tested that fundamentally alters the meaning and comparability of achievement test scores. If it is, the student will get a valid test score. If not, the student will not get a valid test score. We mention these separately because unlike universal tools, designated supports, and accommodations, unlisted resources can sometimes invalidate the student's score. But that is a determination that will be made by the CDE and communicated to the test coordinator. Regardless of which tools you use to help match resources to students' needs, familiarity is key. You will want to be familiar with the student access needs early in the school year to provide them with the necessary resources on a daily basis to access classroom instruction, classroom assessments, and district assessments. Students can also practice using these resources on the practice and training tests for both CAASPP and the ELPAC. They may also be used with Smarter Balanced interim assessments. End-of-year testing should not be the first time you consider using accessibility resources, nor the first time the students are using them. To ensure accessibility resources truly support students to best demonstrate what they know and what they are able to do, students need exposure and practice. Students should be familiar, comfortable, and confident with using resources related to their individual needs. Deciding what accessibility resources should be assigned to students should be a data-based decision-making process, and students' individual needs should be considered when selecting these resources. For students without an IEP or Section 504 plan, a variety of sources of information should be involved in making this decision, and there should be some type of documentation of the identification and selection process. Take a team approach to making these decisions. For students with IEPs and Section 504 plans, decisions on which accessibility resources will be provided to the student will explicitly be cited in a student's IEP or Section 504 plan. The goal for students with IEPs or Section 504 plans is to provide appropriate opportunity and access to assessments by considering each student's cognitive, physical, and emotional needs. As we mentioned before, students with an IEP or Section 504 plan also have access to the accommodations level of accessibility resources. The CDE has made a tool available for educators to use when identifying resources for CAASPP and ELPAC. It is the Individual Student Assessment Accessibility Profile Tool, also known as the ISAAP tool. The ISAAP tool can be used to identify accessibility resources for students and will generate a list of designated supports and accommodations that might fit student needs. You can select multiple accessibility resources in the tool. However, choosing accessibility resources in the ISAAP tool does not impact student testing settings in the Test Operations Management System. Once you're done with the ISAAP tool and have your list, you can follow your local procedures to get information to the correct person who can update the Test Operations Management System. Thank you for watching this video about the accessibility resources. We hope it has benefited you and provided you with some tools to further build your understanding.